Good evening to you, and thanks so much for joining again. How are you looking at this election verdict in India? Because we do believe, we out here believe the world is looking at India, and rightly so. But what is it that you're watching out for today when it comes to the election verdict?
I think it's extremely important election, as you said. Not just India is watching it closely, but the world is watching it closely. And I think if the numbers that we've seen are any indication, it looks like the Modi government is not only going to win fairly strongly, but maybe even hit that very ambitious target that Modi had put out of 400 seats. And so we're watching closely the extent of the victory at this stage. I think victory is very likely, but the question is, what type of a mandate does the Modi government get as the final numbers or official numbers come out? And then, of course, I think it's going to be a question of, beyond that, what is policy going to look like? India has been one of the best performers in the world in terms of growth. We recently marked up India growth again off of very strong numbers. I think the Modi government, again, will be a continuity government, but we'll have to wait probably until the July budget to get a better sense of if there's going to be any more ambitious or different policies following the election win. But broadly speaking, I think India is in a very positive place, and I think that's likely to continue.
Robert, in that case, while you're constructive on the political outcome in India, what's your portfolio strategy with regard to Indian equity and Indian debt as we stand today?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've talked on these issues before. I think there is scope for both India equity and India debt to be attractive additions to portfolios. Some of the issues that we've talked about before on the debt side, of course, government that's has a strong eye towards consolidating the budget, but also boosting growth. And at the same time, the inclusion of India into important bond index is also very constructive. And on the equity side, as I mentioned, the India growth story has been very positive and is likely to continue to be very positive in the years to come, especially as they have supported demographics, government policy that's looking to grow certain manufacturing industries. So I think broadly speaking, India can be a very positive story on both the debt and the equity side, and I would be fairly constructive on both.
Robert, hi, Tamanna here. Now, before I come to you with the question, I just want to mark the implied open, which has now jumped up in the last few minutes, even as the leads are coming in thick and fast. Now you've gone to 130 for your implied open. When we started the show less than about 10 minutes ago, it was at 73. And what is contributing to it is perhaps the numbers you're seeing on the side of your screen, which is your first count of postal ballots already. So remember, we're going to get it right. That's more important than perhaps having a big number out there straight away. You're going to get accurate numbers here. So 16 for the NDA. These are leads, and I explained just a short while ago that postal ballots is what you count first. 7 for the India Alliance. So you're seeing a big gap already there. Only 24 of 543 have counted. Robert, my question to you, honestly, is about what the view is as far as India is concerned. You've seen 2 terms of the same government. You're in all likelihood going to see a third. What would you be watching in terms of what can be done in a third term, and what would drive that FII view? Now, we already know the basics are in place, right? The value of India as the third largest economy sooner than later has been sort of priced in. What next is my question.
Yeah, it's a really key topic. And I think as we talked about, it's going to be very important to see if Modi does win another term, as seems likely, and if he wins with a significant mandate, which also seems likely. How does he construct his vision for the future of India? And I think, as you said, there's a lot of building blocks in place that are very positive in terms of very supportive demographics, as I noted, and a variety of other tailwinds that are supporting the economy, including very recent strong performance. Now, what I'll be looking for that I think is very critical is how India looks forward to continue to support its manufacturing base. We're seeing globally a very important story, which is a continued shift away from China and toward other locations. You're seeing a lot of economies benefit from this restructuring of global supply chains and global trade and capital flows. The US has benefited from reshoring policies, Mexico, other economies in East Asia. And I think India is also and can be a huge beneficiary of this restructuring. And you've seen the Modi government put some policies in place to support manufacturing there. I'd like to see, or I'm watching to see how those policies are going to continue and how India can be a high-tech manufacturing base for the future of the global economy. So I think those are the key factors. There's a lot of key issues, of course, but I think those policies in particular, given the moment that we're in now where companies are thinking about this restructuring happening in the global economy, I think that's going to be critically important how the government plays those factors.
Robert, very quickly, policy continuity is more or less a given at this stage. Better than expected GDP growth as compared to most of our peers. Strong earnings, India's inclusion in the JPM bond index. I mean, the good news has come in thick and fast. In your opinion, what is a risk factor as an FI when you look at India? What could go wrong for us, if anything at all, at this stage?
Yeah, that's a great point. And as you said, the news has been broadly positive. It's been one of the most positive stories in the global economy, not just for emerging markets, but for the entire global economy in this cycle. And as you mentioned, and as we discussed, more news just keeps coming. And I think in terms of risk factors, I think it's going to be critical in the years ahead that the government puts in place policies that support growth. And as I said, that looks towards not just the short-term dynamics, but the long-term dynamics where it can benefit from its very positive demographic profile and the shifts in the global economy that I mentioned. And, India has been growing very rapidly, but historically, many economies, as they've grown rapidly, eventually hit sort of middle income struggles that are hard to overcome. So I think for India, it's hard to find very challenging short-term issues that could really restrain the economy. But I think longer term, it's very important for the government to think about policies to continue to support growth, especially as the economy develops further and further, because we have seen from history that other economies have run into issues as they've continued to grow rapidly and develop. So I think the issues facing India, or the potential challenges, are really those medium to long-term issues.
Robert, one final question really. Assuming that the election verdict comes in as planned, at the current valuations, is India an avoid, or would you reckon at 20-21 times, which is traditionally what India has always traded at, with the growth India is showing and the policy continuity, India is not an avoid but a buy?
Yeah. As we discussed, as you mentioned, I think given the very positive growth dynamics, given the potential for the continuity government to put in even more pro-growth policies in place, I think there's a strong argument for inclusion of India equities, even as you said, at these valuations. And I think when you look around the world, as we've discussed, India has continued to surprise expectations to the upside. Even just recently, as I noted, the growth came in much stronger than expected, and we marked up growth for this year, as well as our growth prospects for several years to come. So I think India keeps surprising the world with its resilience. And I think with that backdrop, that the equity market, even at these levels, could be very attractive if India is able to continue to deliver on this very positive growth story.
Most certainly. Robert, great having you today on a very important day. Thanks so much. And watch the election results. Although it might be late for you, but I'm guessing you won't be able to sleep either. We certainly can't. Forget sleeping. But so excited about the trade today, guys.